Today is Tuesday, May 13th, 2025. Margot, please take it away.
I, Margaret G. Kay, the Town Clerk of the Town of Morristown, do hereby state that it is 7:31 p.m. on Tuesday, May 13, 2025, and that this regular meeting is being held in Council Chambers, 200 South Street, Morristown, New Jersey. Adequate notice of this meeting was provided according to law by written notice to the Morristown Daily Record, the official newspaper of the Town of Morristown, and to the Newark Star Ledger, both more than 48 hours ago. Notice was also posted on the bulletin board at Town Hall and filed with the office of the Town Clerk of the Town of Morristown. I do further state that I shall enter into the minutes of this meeting a statement that such notice was furnished as particularly described by me in this public announcement. Take a roll call. Councilwoman Foster is excused this evening. Councilman Iannacone is also excused this evening. Councilwoman Lindsay? Here. Councilman Polipchuk?
Here.
Councilman Russo?
Here.
Councilman Silva?
Present.
Council President Umbriac?
Here.
Mr. President, you have a quorum.
Thank you. Let's please pause for a moment of silence. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, I have just one quick announcement. The public hearing and council vote for ordinance numbers O-17-2025 and O-18-2025 have both been rescheduled to the May 27th council meeting. We have 3 items on the consent agenda. I will break out item number 3 for a separate vote. Unless any member of council wants to separate 1 and 2, I would ask for a motion to adopt consent agenda items 1 and 2.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Okay, Councilwoman Lindsay.
Yes.
Councilman Polipchuk.
Yes.
Councilman Russo.
Yes.
Councilman Silva.
Yes.
Council President Umbria.
Yes.
Motion carries. Item number 3, facilities use approval for the Hope Day Festival on July 19th, 2025, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. We are taking another vote on this. There was a date error when it was previously adopted, so it is up for adoption again.
I'll make a motion to approve consent agenda item number 3.
Second.
Councilwoman Lindsay.
Yes.
Councilman Polipchuk.
Yes.
Councilman Russo.
Yes.
Councilman Silva.
Abstain.
And Council President Umbria.
Yes.
Motion carries. Consent agenda item number 3 is also adopted. At this time, I'll open the floor for a public hearing on any matter. When called upon, please approach the microphone, state your name and address, and limit your comments to 3 minutes or less. Be advised that any derogatory comments targeting members of council and/or administration may be ruled out of order.
Kristen Ace, come on up.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Kristen Ace. I live at 24 Franklin Street, and I'm here representing the Morristown Shade Tree Commission. I just want to let all of you know that the 3 events that we had recently were great successes. Our library presentation, our mulching of Bud Park, and our Arbor Day. I would like to say a special thank you to Councilwoman Foster, who's not here, and Council President Umbriac for attending our Arbor Day celebration and all the wonderful things you said about the Shade Tree Commission. We appreciate it. And also to Council President Umbriac and Councilman Iannacone, who is not here, for your sweat equity for the mulching. It's 15 yards of mulch is a lot of mulch to move, and we really, really appreciated your help. So thank you for that. Our next meeting is May 20th at 7 p.m. in room 201 of the Town Hall. And now I also would like to just give support to the ordinance that is up for adoption tonight for the Open Space Trust Fund. As someone who works diligently and intimately in all the green spaces in this town, I know what is needed. And this trust fund would help our town tremendously with maintenance and caring for green spaces without putting a burden on the town. So thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Kristen. Yes, ma'am.
I'm Debbie McCumber. I live on 2 Edge Hill Avenue in Morris Township. I'm here to representing the organizers of the hands-off rally, and would like to thank you, Morristown, Chief Richardson, the mayor, for participating and making the whole thing happen, and Jill and Caitlin and the others who allowed us to come in and have this rally on short notice, which is pretty much how they all form. And we're just greatly, greatly appreciative of everything that you provided for us. And we thought it was a great success, and hope to do more. So thank you.
Thank you for being here. Mr. Burns.
Good evening. My name is Bill Byrne, and I live in Morristown, New Jersey, the greatest town on earth. Just like to get out there. And I'm here to talk about, as you all know, I just became president of our brand new self-advocacy group, and we've been making a lot of strides and everything. And one of the things we came up with, we said, well, gee, we got to get a name for our group, because we can't just call it a new self-advocacy group, because if we're going to get it out there eventually and market it, this thing, we got to come up with a name. So we came up with a bunch of names. Parents said, hey, why don't you call it the Archangels? So we put that on a slate of names, and so then we all took a vote. And so our new name is the Archangels Unite. So, down the road, if you know somebody that has a disability and is looking for a self-advocacy group to join, please spread the message, and right now we don't have any dues because we're not sure what we're doing. We're still working on our first agenda, and that's to, work on a lot of different things, and we're gonna also have technology. We're also gonna have technology involved in this down the road. So, if you know somebody, because I wanna get the next generation of leaders. So we need everybody's help in the community here to spread the message, because we're looking for like a lot of young people with disabilities, to come up to the forefront, because people like me, a lot of us older self-advocacy advocates are dying out, and we got to build a next generation of leaders, just like you guys are doing, in the Democrat Party and stuff, and so forth. So thank you for always supporting me, and I get to brag about the mayor and his wife, whenever I do these Zoom meetings and stuff. Of course, they're good things, and says, oh yeah, Bill knows the mayor and his wife. So thank you for all that you do, Morristown, and you're a great town. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Dr. Lynn Siebert, 178 Hillcrest Avenue. And I just wanted to commend Jillian on her 10 years of service. There was a beautiful article in the Newsbee on that, and you're very lucky to have such an incredibly capable administrator, and we all benefit from her openness and capabilities. I also wanted to thank the council, and especially Steve Polupchik, for efforts to put the Open Space Trust Fund idea forward. And I assume everybody is well aware, but it's something that is really, really a powerful tool for any municipality, not only to help you acquire and maintain open space and farmland and recreational facilities, but it also gives you tremendous leverage because it opens up your eligibility for grants. It streamlines the process of state and federal grants coming in, and also allows you to come in at a higher level. In many cases, you're eligible for 50 to 90% grant matching funds as opposed to 25% if you applied without being a member, without having an open space trust fund. And I just wanted to mention a few other things, of course, the benefits of open space and green spaces. I'm president of the Burnham Park Association for more years than I should admit, and we have really been concerned with open space management and protection because that's something that really contributes not only to the beauty of a municipality, but to the mental health and the well-being and to the feeling of connectedness, because parks really do help unite people and bring them together. So I just wanted to thank you all for your openness to that. I sincerely hope that it goes forward and is on the ballot in November, and I just want to encourage you because it is financially beneficial as well as morally and aesthetically an asset for any town to have that funding. So thank you very much, and keep up the great work.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Good evening. I'm Linda Carrington, 49 McCulloch Avenue, Morristown. And I, too, am here to thank you for the Open Space Trust Fund ordinance that you're going to consider. And I just want to say also I'm part of a group of people who are willing to go during election season and try to convince voters to vote for it. So we're always looking for people to volunteer to help us do that too. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. Anyone else from the public? I will close public session. Council responses to the public hearing comments. Any comments? Any responses?
Just thank you to everyone who came out and supported open space. It's something I have been working on for a while, and I appreciate seeing the community support. So thank you.
And just we keep encouraging Bill with all the advocacy work that he does, and he's very right on raising new generations, not only on that front, but in every front. So very good, and keep it up.
Very good. All right, let's move on to mayor's proclamations and presentations, please.
Diane and Jean. Jeannie or Jean?
Jeannie.
Hi, I'm Jeannie Stifelman. I'm the New Jersey chapter lead for Moms Demand Action.
Hi, I'm Diane Dresdale. I'm the Gun Violence Prevention Chairperson for National Council of Jewish Women and also a member of Moms.
So we do this yearly,
Yes.
and we're going to read this into the record and present you with this proclamation, because what you guys do is very important. The first Friday in June is recognized as National Gun Violence Awareness Day to honor and remember all victims and survivors of gun violence, and to declare what a country must do to more to reduce gun violence. Every day, more than 120 Americans are killed by gun violence, alongside more than 200 who are shot and wounded. On an average, there are more than 17,000 gun homicides every year. Americans are 26 times more likely to die by gun homicide than people in other high-income countries. And New Jersey averages 475 gun deaths every year, with a rate of 54.8 deaths per 100,000 people. Gun homicides and assaults are concentrated in cities, with more than half of all firearms-related gun deaths in the national occurring in 127 cities. The U.S. has a ratio of 121 firearms owned by 100 residents. That's pretty staggering. Up from 88 per 100 in 2011, far surpassing that of other countries around the world, and making the U.S. the only country with more civilian-owned firearms than people. The U.S. gun suicide rate is 10 times that of higher income countries, and access to gun increases the risk of death by suicide by 3 times. The Second Amendment rights of law-abiding citizens is consistent with keeping firearms away from people who are at risk of harming themselves or harming others. In states where elected officials have taken action to pass common-sense gun safety legislation and policy consistent with the Second Amendment, fewer people die and are injured by gun violence. June 6, 2025 would have been the 27th birthday of Idea Pendleton, the teenager who marched in President Obama's second inaugural parade and was tragically shot and killed just weeks later. The idea of National Gun Violence Awareness Day was inspired by a group of Idea's friends who asked their classmates to commemorate her life by wearing orange, the colors hunters wear to announce themselves to other hunters when in the wilderness. And orange is the color that symbolizes the value of human life. And wearing orange on June 6, 2025, and by acknowledging June as National Gun Violence Awareness Month, Americans will help raise awareness about gun violence by honoring the lives of those lost and human hardship endured due to gun violence. To honor Dia and the thousands of other Americans whose lives are tragically cut short every year, and the countless survivors who are injured by shootings every day, a national coalition of organizations has designated June 6, 2025, and the 11th Annual Gun Violence Awareness Day. Now therefore, I, Timothy P. Doherty, Mayor of the Town of Morristown, do hereby proclaim Friday, June 6th, as National Gun Violence Awareness Day in the Town of Morristown. And I encourage Morristown residents to participate in promoting greater awareness about gun violence and gun safety. Thank you, ladies, for what you do to bring this awareness to our community and to all the people that you serve. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Can we say it? Okay, thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. Diane Dresdale again. I represent both of us, but she is our leader of moms. I first want to announce that we are working towards a rally in Morristown on June 7th, which is the Saturday of that weekend. It'll be at 11 a.m. We're getting it together, and there'll be announcements going out. That's important because we'd like everyone to be there to hear what's going on in the gun violence prevention arena, which is a lot. I wanted to read you just some facts about New Jersey and our gun violence prevention efforts. Well, it's clear that there's a health crisis and gun violence in the country. New Jersey is fortunate because we have one of the lowest rates of gun violence, death, and injury. But this is no coincidence. We have a comprehensive concealed carry permitting process that needs to be protected at this point because it's possible that it may be threatened by a national bill that would make concealed carry legal throughout the country. But moving on, we have extensive permit background check requirements for all gun purchases. We have an extreme risk protection law, a law that lowers the risk of someone endangering themselves if they're in distress or hurting others. We have strong ghost gun laws. We have an assault weapons ban. And in New Jersey, this is what I wanted to focus on right now, we have prioritized community violence intervention and hospital-based intervention programs. Community Violence Intervention Program, CVI. Most of us aren't aware about this, but they include such as Newark Community Street Team and Patterson Healing Collective. It's because of these programs since 2022 that the rate of gun violence, death, and injury has gone down dramatically in inner cities. These programs save lives every day. There's even children who need to be walked to school that these programs provide, because if they didn't have guides walking them through the safer part of the neighborhoods, they could potentially be shot. Why I'm bringing this to your attention now is in April, a couple of weeks ago, the Justice Department of the United States defunded these programs that had been funded through the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act. And we want to alert the community to the dangers of this. These programs not only save lives, but they save us money. They save us money because if there was even more gun violence in these cities, there would be more burden on our hospital systems. But even so, just from a moral standpoint, I think we all believe that we should reduce the chance of being hurt by gunfire in our inner cities. So we're trying to bring your attention to this CVI programs and add it to your list for your protests should you go out and protest the next time around. And congratulations to the leader who arranged the protest in Morristown. That was great. So that's all I wanted to say, bring your attention to that. Thank you very much.
And Jeannie Stifelman, Moms Demand Action, I just want to add a couple things to that. On Thursday, we're going to be gathering as Moms Demand Action New Jersey in Trenton, and we are going to be advocating for additional laws, and we're going to be advocating for the CVI partners to receive additional funding from the state to hopefully offset some of the money that has been lost to these important partners in their communities most impacted by gun violence. The other thing I want to say is we are a gun safety organization, and one thing I appreciate what the mayor did today and what you all do to support gun violence prevention here in Morristown. But some of the things that can be done on a local level are around public education. And public education includes teaching people the importance of things like secure storage, making people aware of gun laws such as the red flag laws. So if you know someone who may be a danger to themselves or others, that there's a mechanism in New Jersey that allows the police and mental health experts to be able to go to that household and remove a gun legally. Those are the kind of things that we need to focus on in communities like Morristown, where maybe we aren't as prevalent in terms of gun violence here and homicides, but there's always an issue with suicide in a community like this. And keeping your guns locked up, keeping the guns, the bullets separate from the guns in the house, those kind of things will save lives in communities like this. So thank you so much. We look forward to June 7th, being on the steps here, and appreciate all that you do. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, April 26th, Saturday, Speedwell Lake cleanup hosted by the Morristown Clean Communities in partnership with Cutler Park Neighborhood. Thank you, Councilman Plipchek. Wednesday, April 30th, Creature Comfort Pets Therapy Day at St. Peter's Church. I want to thank Councilman Russo for attending that event. On May 2nd, Morristown Area Little League opening night at Morris Plains Community Center in Morris Plains. Council President Umbriak counted that. Got the
Through a strike.
Through a strike?
Through a strike.
See, that's good.
Yeah.
At least I didn't have that pressure anymore. You didn't have that pressure. Sunday, May 4th, Children on the Green 30th anniversary event. Another Council President Umbriak attended. Saturday, May 10th, myself, Councilman Plipchek, and Councilman Silva attended the Lafayette pre-event on the Green. And I'm sure Councilman Silva will agree with me. Councilman Plipchek gave an amazing speech.
Yes.
And David Muzo and Councilman Russo was there too.
Yep.
And again, that was an amazing speech, and it touched a lot of people. So job well done.
Thank you, Mayor.
But get ready for Lafayette coming back to Morristown. All right? Get ready. Start reading about it. It's out there. It's coming. He's coming. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's pre our birthday the year before, so it's going to be a really cool event. And there's a lot of history out there about Lafayette that we should know, that the public should know, that the kids should know, especially our town, since this is where Lafayette came to tell Washington about the money he was bringing in the elite troops for the Revolutionary War, which really put us over to a win. So makes our country who we are today. Upcoming events. Wednesday, May 14th, I have a Q&A with seniors. 7 o'clock, and those who have the time to come, I know we've been posting this, the township and the town. On 7 o'clock at the Morris Township Municipal Building, there's an event. It's a joint mental health symposium with Morris Township, and it's a foundation called Catch You Later Foundation. It's about distracted and impaired driving on a personal perspective. It is a very moving presentation. You'll hear this woman talk about something that devastated her family and how she worked through it and what she does today to deal with it. If you have kids that are now starting to drive, it's really something good if you want to bring them. We've done this with the mayor of Hanover, Morris Plains, Parsippany, Florham Park, the Sheriff's Department, law enforcement, mental health people, and it is really a moving, and this is a completely bipartisan. There'll be mayors from different communities on the dais, and you'll hear different things, and it's really a moving presentation. If you can make it, please do so. And if you have somebody who's just starting to drive, or a young teenager that's driving, 18 or 17 or 19, or yourself, you'll see some real courage and some real determination on how to put your life back together and make something out of something so devastating that happened to this woman, and how she put her life back together and what she does each day to get through life. It's worth it, and you'll find it very, very moving. Saturday, May 17th, from noon till 9 to noon is a townwide cleanup. To register, go to townofmorristown.org/cleanup. That's Saturday, May 17th, 9 a.m. Starts at Town Hall right here, so come here on Saturday the 17th. Really quick, I wrote down this to Kristen Ace for a Shade Tree Commission. We have found out today that Governor Murphy sent up $87,000 for Bud Street and Jacob Ford. You heard that, right? It's like the air just got taken out. That's quite a bit of money. We want to thank the governor's office, DCA, for sending that grant money up. That's going to be great. It's great to have in our parks. May 26th, Town Hall will be closed in observance of Memorial Day. 10 a.m. Memorial Day parade starts in Morris Township and proceeds to the Morristown Green. 11 a.m. services at the Morristown Green. And I will close with two things. One is, if you didn't see my post yesterday and you didn't experience it today, you may experience it tomorrow. The one-lane closure, or the one lane from Bernardsville up 287 North. DOT notified us late Friday. Obviously, nobody here the weekend. We get it Monday morning. We immediately posted it Monday morning. Typical with DOT. Not taking a shot at DOT. We like when you come send us money and things like that. We have a lot of state roads. But it is another inconvenience for the drivers, dealing not just with that, but with Route 80, which they found another sinkhole on the shoulder today. You'll see a lot of uptick in traffic through Morristown at the times around 3:30 and 5:30. Is a lot of Route 80 traffic making its way through Morristown. I have watched now several weeks the traffic on McCullough that does not exist when Route 80 was not closed. They are finding their ways to get up past exit 34 on Route 80, and Morristown is the way to go. That's how they come off of 24, come up 287, down 287, go through Morristown, get up through Sussex, get up to as far as they can up past Ledgerwood, and keep going up to get to 80, and then past that exit. So we're going to be dealing with that until they get this fixed on Route 80. Hopefully the state will continue to work on those sinkholes, and then we'll be okay. And the last thing is the SMCMUA, which is our water company. They have field technicians who will be performing scheduled hydrant maintenance and flushing this week between the hours of 9 a.m. and 4 p.m. Please be advised that low water pressure and discoloration may occur. For a list of affected streets, you can visit townofmorristown.org/construction. So if you get a little brown or you get some low pressure, that is the reason why they're flushing the hydrants, which they have to do maintenance-wise. So that is it, Council President. Oh, and there's a small note on the bottom of my page to say this publicly. It is my 30th wedding anniversary. Let me tell you something. I would not be here and would not have any of the success I've had in my life, personal life, not the mayor stuff, if it wasn't for my bride, who has stuck with me through thick and thin for almost 36 years. So I'm very fortunate, and it is our wedding anniversary. It was fortunate she said, you can go to the meeting tonight, because it's an important meeting with other things that we have on the agenda, and we'll celebrate Saturday night. But just wanted to throw that out there, because somebody wrote this on I didn't write it. Somebody wrote it on here, don't forget. Okay, I think that's all I have, Council. I have a couple of the sheets here, hold on. Distracted impaired driving we talked about, and NJDOT's traffic advisory. It's all posted. but please pay attention to the traffic issues and the uptick in traffic in Morristown. And lastly, not to take up much more time, you'll see the police chief has authorized, I guess they would call them stanchions, in our downtown. You'll see the red or orange poles as you go down South Street, some areas, because DoorDash people have been taking up all the spots by the crosswalks, and some of them in the crosswalks. So he has authorized those bollards, I guess they're called, in areas where there's been some traffic issues. I will give you a quick example. There was a ballard on the corner of, by the Women's Club. A woman pulled in to an empty space to back up to another empty space, and another woman stopped on South Street, got out of her car in the middle of South Street, and went into the smoke shop. So I was with my 2 grandkids and my daughter-in-law. I said, I'll be right back. And I just very nicely, and I know the police chief doesn't like me to do this, but I went in and I said, excuse me, is that your car parked on the middle of South Street? Yeah, it's not a parking spot. There's a woman trying to get in a parking spot, and you're parked in the road and she can't pull in. She goes, well, I'm not going to leave it there forever. And that is the attitude of what we deal with every day. And I know that citizens get frustrated at some of the driving behavior of some people. I wasn't, I wasn't nasty or anything. I just said it's not a parking spot, and it's a state road and it's 1 lane, and it's just people just do what they want to do. They put their flashers on and they think it's okay to park anywhere they want with flashers going. That's the new thing, in case you didn't notice. If you drive around town, you'll see flashing lights. That means it's okay to park anywhere they want. Well, the police chief is taking action, and we appreciate Chief Richardson's working on that issue. We want everybody to be successful. We want DoorDash people to be successful. I bet you everybody in this place ordered DoorDash at one time or another. But at the same time, they can't park on crosswalks, and they can't park where it impedes people from making turns onto side streets, and it impedes people seeing other people walking across a crosswalk because there's a car parked there and they can't see the person. So we appreciate you, Chief, keeping up on that, and that's all I have.
Okay. Thank you very much. All right. Before we go to our presentations and reports, we're going to do the council liaison reports.
Yes, good evening, everybody. I do know that the Housing Authority is working on every issue that happens. 39 Early Street had the one elevator down. They did fix it. They are working on whoever propping the exit door open for people to come in. So they did handle that. That's mostly all I have. And then we had the bingo for the seniors. They had a great time.
Great. Thank you. Councilman Polipchuk?
Next partnership meeting is tomorrow morning, so we'll have a better report next time. Elections did close, and I don't want to say the wrong names. I'm not going to say who won, but I know there is a new person on the partnership because they had 1 open spot, I believe, from an incumbent retiring. So it'd be nice to have a new face.
Great. Great. Councilman Russo?
As far as the planning board, with all the great stuff happening in Morristown, it's been very quiet. I think the last meeting lasted about 2.5 minutes. That's no exaggeration. Next one's supposed to be May 22nd, but we'll see if it happens. So far, pretty quiet for the summertime, but that's good considering how busy it has been. So I'll keep you posted.
Thank you very much. Councilman Silva?
MPA will meet next Wednesday at 6 p.m.
Okay. Very good. Okay, so we're going to move forward to other presentations and reports. We have the Lackawanna redevelopment project and MLOF's redevelopment project.
Councilman, we're going to start with the Lackawanna redevelopment project. If you want to, and presenting tonight, we have Bob Powell from Nassau Capital Advisors.
Yes.
Good evening. Good to be with you, members of council and the mayor.
You can't bring it back?
Hold on. Oh. Sorry.
It's not on.
Crucial. hard
Is
setting
that
his
better?
microphone.
You can hear me now?
Can you hear in the back?
I'll bring it a little closer if you, is
There
that
you go.
better?
That's
Okay,
better. Thank
good,
you,
good,
sir.
good. My firm, Nassau Capital Advisors, has been engaged by the town to provide financial advisory services to your planning and development staff in connection with a number of redevelopment projects that are coming forward in town. And the focus of our work is not architecture or planning, it's financial feasibility and an understanding of how a project is going to impact financially the neighborhood and the community. The subject of tonight's discussion is the Lackawanna Place Urban Renewal Project. We've done a little slideshow here for you, which I think is pretty clearly shown on these screens. So what I want to do is briefly run through in my presentation a description of the project and the matter before the governing body, which is taking action on a financial agreement that would authorize payments in lieu of taxes. Let me start out by way of background, perhaps more for the audience than for members of the governing body who have done pilots before, but let me just briefly walk through what is a pilot agreement, because it's not often well understood by many people in the community. A pilot agreement is a form of financial assistance that municipalities are allowed to provide to developers under a state statute that goes way back many decades, the long-term tax exemption statute. The agreement provides, as a big picture, for a project to receive the benefits of what's called a financial agreement that allows for the project to be built, and instead of it being subject, the project, to full real estate taxes, the project is subject to an alternative system of payments under what's called a financial agreement. It's a contract between the town and the developer. Under the financial agreement, the developer would make payments in lieu of taxes. That's the acronym PILOT, for a period generally of up to 30 years. The property, as a general proposition, once the financial agreement is put into place, the property itself becomes technically tax exempt from real estate taxes, but it continues to pay revenues to the town under a different formula than regular ad valorem real estate taxes. The basic idea behind the formula is that the payments are structured as a percentage of what's called annual gross revenues. And that's generally for rental projects, which is what we're talking about here. There are other kinds of projects that have different payment formulas, but as a general proposition for rental apartments such as this, the payments are a percentage of annual gross revenues. That formula is actually elegantly simple in the statute. It's not complicated, it's not hard to understand, and it's really easy to monitor. It's all revenues generated by the project, all revenues. Rents, pet fees, late charges, whatever revenues come in from the tenants is considered annual gross revenues. There are no deductions from annual gross revenues for expenses or anything like that in calculating what the payments are. The financial agreement is allowed under the statute, subject to a governing body's decision, to set a percentage of annual gross revenues that generally range from 10% of annual gross revenues with no maximum. It can be all the way up to 99%. And as I said, the term of these agreements can go as long as generally 30 years, can be shorter, and in the case of this particular matter, the proposal before you tonight is for a much shorter agreement than 30 years. It's for a 12-year financial agreement. The other key issue for you, from a financial point of view, is that the pilot revenues that are obligated, the developer's obligated to make, are secured just like taxes are secured. They're secured by a lien on the property. So if a developer who's got a financial agreement doesn't fulfill his obligations to make the payments, the town can put a lien on the property, and it's a senior lien, just like a tax lien. So I've probably done 150 pilots over the state of New Jersey in the last many years, and I don't think I've ever seen a default, other than an unusual bankruptcy here and there, but a default under a pilot agreement, because the security behind them is very strong. And as I said, pilot agreements way back when the statute was first enacted, back in the 60s, were limited to urban areas. In the last 15 or 20 years, actually most of the pilot agreements that are being done in New Jersey now are being done in suburban development communities all over New Jersey, including many towns such as yours, Madison, Chatham, Westfield. Princeton just did several pilots on some redevelopment it's doing. The general process that towns go through in determining whether to enter into a financial agreement is first to determine whether a project needs a pilot financially. And this is an empirical question. It's not an opinion. It has to do with the cost of the project, the additional obligations that the planning board and the town may impose on the developer for features of the project that serve a public interest that are costly. It also has a lot to do with rents and operating costs. The typical project of the kind we're talking about here, which I'm going to describe in detail later, is going to require a developer to invest typically millions of dollars of equity capital in the project. You can't borrow most. You can borrow some of the project costs, but at the end of the day, a developer has to put in what's called equity. And the analysis that we perform for the town and other municipal clients is basically to assess whether, at full taxes, the project makes financial sense. And if it does not make financial sense from the developer's perspective on a return on investment standard, is there a way to structure a pilot agreement that would make the project attractive for the developer to invest the equity in and increase the return? The other interesting part of a financial agreement is that, unlike paying full taxes, where the developer and the town are basically limited to zoning and planning board approval process, which limit the things you can ask the developer to do, and that's a lot of things for the planning board, but under a financial agreement, there's almost no limit to the requirements and demands that a town can add to the design and the features of a project in return for a pilot. So it gives a towns are using pilot agreements as a way of increasing their leverage in getting things into a project that they find serve a public interest. Let me go to the project itself now, which I know that the members of the council are familiar with, and for the public's benefit. If we go back to, can we go back to the very first slide a minute, the cover slide? I just want to show you the.
We can focus on the project.
Okay, all right. This is a project that's going to be built right at the train station that will consist of 89 rental apartments, of which 76 apartments will be market rate, as we call them, studios, 1 and 2 bedroom units. And another 13 of the apartments will be deed restricted for low and moderate income households. The general eligibility for those affordable units will be households that make around 50%, no more than 50% of the median income in the Morris County region. So just generally speaking, the market rents on this project will probably range from $3,500 to over $4,000 a month, but the affordable units will probably have a weighted average rent of a little over $1,000 a month. So there's a considerable gap between the rents, same apartments, same building, but the rents are considerably lower. The assessment of the need for the project is what we've performed for the town. And to do that, we've prepared a very detailed analysis of the economics of the project, which is in the form of a report that's been given to Jillian. It looked at all the key factors: development cost, rents, interest rates, operating expenses, financing options, and determined from that analysis, with and without a pilot agreement, whether the developer's equity investment would generate what is considered in the capital markets an adequate return on investment. So we prepared two alternative models. And the only difference between the two was whether there was a full tax obligation or an agreement for payment in lieu of taxes. Let's flip to the next slide. Just to summarize our findings and conclusions, we concluded that as a result, in part, because of the affordable housing obligation, which, as I said, will require much lower rents, but essentially the same per unit cost, there will be a cost burden associated with the affordable units. And the project also, from a design point of view, as you know, maybe from the planning board process, has put all of the parking for this project at the train station in a structured garage. It's not surface parking. And there were also some features to the project from a design point of view that we won't go into now, but they're all part of the file, that are really upscale in terms of materials that are used and the design of the building itself. So the project, in summary, is projected to cost roughly $45 million. If you flip to the next slide, of the $45 million of project cost, roughly $18 million of that is going to be an investment on the part of the developer. And to summarize again our analysis, if the project were to pay full real estate taxes, the return on the developer's investment would be under 8%, about 7.8%, which in the capital markets today, when you have choices as a developer or as an investor, is not considered, although it's a profitable return, it's not considered a particularly attractive return for real estate investments, considering the risks that are involved for the developer who has not built the project yet. And therefore, it's not likely that at that rate of return, in my experience, the project would get built. If one looks alternatively at the option of a pilot agreement, which is the next slide, the pilot agreement that we have negotiated with this developer, which I'll explain in just a moment down below, that agreement would result in an increase in the return on investment from the mid 7% range up to the mid 8% range. That return on investment, even with the pilot in today's capital markets, is at the very low end of acceptable. I'll be honest with you. And this is part of why the negotiations have taken so long with this developer. I won't spend too much time right now, unless you'd like me to later, to talk about the risks associated with a project like this, because it hasn't been built yet, and we're living in somewhat crazy times in the real estate capital markets. So there is a risk. The pilot agreement minimizes that risk by potentially increasing the investment return. And the pilot agreement that's been the subject of rather considerable negotiations that we've had with the developer is a pretty tough agreement compared to most of the ones that I've been involved in. It's not a term of 30 years. It's a term of 12 years, which means that after the 12th year of this agreement, the project goes back on the tax rolls. The other thing about the agreement that's a little more aggressive from a municipal point of view than the typical pilot agreement that we have been very much involved in across the state, is that the percentage of annual gross revenues that this agreement requires the developer to pay are considerably higher than the typical pilot agreement that we've been involved in negotiating with similar projects. Years 1 through 5, the formula would require the developer to pay 13% of annual gross revenues. The next 5 years, that goes up to 13.5%, and then the last 2 years to 14%. The first 5 years at 13%, just to put this in some perspective, represents 85% of full taxes. So this pilot agreement does not provide a relatively steep discount on full taxes compared with many other pilot agreements that we're involved in. It will reduce the tax burden roughly about 15% of what it otherwise would be. The other thing that it does, however, accomplishes, which is not quite so quantitative, is that it provides the developer and its lender with more assurance in the first several years of the project that there won't be any tax surprises that affects the operating costs of the project. You can predict better this way, from a lender's point of view, what the revenues are going to be than if the project were subject to full taxes, because full taxes sometimes goes higher as time goes on in many towns. And that's a factor that plays a role in the value of this rather modest discount against full taxes. The final part of the presentation, which is a little detailed, but we'll put the screen up for you to look at, is that what do the numbers look like? Let me start over on the far left-hand side, year rent up. This assumes the project is built, and in the first year, number 1, the project's roughly 60% occupied, not fully rented, but it's up and operating. The year to really look at that we focus on mostly is year 2, when we think the project should probably be 95% roughly occupied. In that year 2, with the 13% pilot revenue and the projected annual gross revenues that we have in our model, we project that the total pilot payments would be roughly $577,000. Under the statute, the town can elect not to exempt the property, the land, but just the improvements from taxes. And they've done, and the town here is elected to do that in its negotiation with the developer. So in this case, the land under which this building will be situated, which is now, by the way, tax exempt, because it had been owned by the Parking Authority and New Jersey Transit, the land will become a tax rateable, but not the building. So we're able to provide under the statute a provision whereby the developer, under this arrangement, year 2, has to pay a total of $577,000 of total payments under the agreement. But the developer can get a credit against the $577,000 for land tax payments that he's going to have to make, real estate taxes. And that number would be $143,000. I'm sorry. That's real estate taxes on just the land. The land would be reassessed to its market value, and that would be the land tax. That would mean he'd get a credit for that, so this would not affect the developer's total payment. He would make $577,000 of payments, of which $143,000 would be the land tax. The net pilot gross would be then the difference, or $434,000 of gross pilot payments. Under the statute, 5% of pilot payments have to be transferred over to the county. There's nothing we can do about that. That's just in the statute. So Morris County gets 5% of the gross pilot payments, the net pilot payments. So the town's net share of pilot payments would be $412,000, plus the town would get 36% of the land tax payments, the municipality. That's your share of total tax revenues, or $52,000. You also get a service fee, roughly of 2% of the payments under the statute. So far right-hand column, total town net proceeds in year 2 would be roughly $477,000. And we project that as rents increase over that 12-year period, we're projecting 3% a year, which is conservative. Apartment rents have been going up faster than that, but for 3% a year increases, that'll show you roughly what the total net proceeds of pilot payments just to the municipal government should be over that 12-year period. If you flip to the final slide, just one more kind of wonkish set of numbers here, which I know will help you, those of you that are in the finance side of this. How does all that compare if this project were paying full real estate taxes? Which I don't think it's capable of doing financially, but let's assume it did. The full real estate taxes are shown in the second column on the left. They would be in year 2, the $696,000. Morristown's municipal government gets 37% of that. Whereas under the pilot arrangement, the municipality, after all the deductions and changes and 5% to the county and so forth, the municipality would get $476,000. So under the pilot arrangement, the municipal government would get $221,000 roughly more under the pilot than the municipality would have received at full taxes. And that column escalates that number down over the next several years accordingly. At the end of year 12, as I said, the project would then revert to full taxes, whatever they may be. An assessment would be made by your assessor, and the financial agreement would be terminated. So that, in a nutshell, is how the financial agreement would work in this case. I apologize for the details. I should have warned you at the beginning that there's some math involved, but I know you've been through these pilots before, so I thought it was useful to give you some detail. I'd be happy to take some questions if you like.
Does anybody have any questions at this time? No? Thank
Oh
you
my
for
goodness.
Thank you for your presentation. Well, you've answered all our questions previously.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jillian. John Inglesino here as your redevelopment counsel. It's great to be here with all of you. And I think as the public sees the level of transparency of the Doherty administration here in terms of providing a lot of very useful information, I think the thing to glean from this is a few things. Number one, this is a transformative project that's been in the makings for a long time. That is also a part of your affordable housing effort here in Morristown. Number two, and this is really what Bob showed you, is that but for the pilot agreement that is before you tonight, but for the pilot, this project would never get built. So it needs that financial assistance in order to be viable. And Bob uses basically two metrics. You heard them tonight, not only return on investment, but also making sure that the project is financeable so a bank will lend on it. So I wanted to make those 2 points. With respect to the planning board, of course, that is a completely separate proceeding, and what the planning board can or cannot exact from the developer is based entirely on what the redevelopment plan says. I want to make that point. And you're going to hear another presentation in a moment on another project. And now that you're all PhDs in financial analysis for pilots, That's going to make Dan Banker's job a lot easier and a lot more succinct in following Bob. But you're going to see that not all pilot terms on these agreements are alike. They vary. They vary because the project variables vary. The cost varies. And there's a lot of negotiation that goes on here to reach a balance of the town getting the very best deal that it can get financially from a project on the one hand, and having a project that is a desirable project in town be financially viable on the other. And that balance is the product of a lot of negotiation that goes on between developers and the municipalities. And it's your financial advisors, like Bob and Dan, that are in the trenches going back and forth with the financial people for the developers, exchanging numbers that ultimately leads to that agreement. So again, you're going to see another financial agreement in a moment, but you're going to see different financial terms. And so wanted you to be aware and the public aware of kind of what that is all about. And I don't know if anybody has any questions of me, but if not, I'll turn it over to Dan Banker.
Thank you, John.
It's also John's birthday.
Happy birthday, John.
Oh, happy birthday, John.
Happy birthday, John.
You want us to sing?
Happy anniversary, Mary, to you and to Mary.
Before you get started.
Oh, sure. I just have a comment. I'm glad to see residents here. And as you saw the presentation, many questions that you might have or had were answered through the presentation. One of the reasons why we didn't ask questions is this project has been for years. And believe me, at my home, I have stacks of paper for that project, studying. We have meetings with Mr. Powell, with Jillian. So it has been a hard work. This is not something that come up. So that's why we don't have questions from here. But one of the things that I was thinking about is that many people in town, it took me 7 years to get to the master's degree of pilots, and I have to go for the doctorate for more years. But because it's a learning process that we have gone through. And even in the last meeting that we have for the one that is going to be presented, I learned a couple things. And those couple things that I learned make me more firm in supporting these kind of projects, because we're positive things for the town. One of the things that I wish people get with these presentations, and even if they ask questions, when it's time to make questions, is to get out of their way some myth, because there are many comments and many misunderstandings on pilots. And I'm going to ask permission for an analogy. I don't play golf. If I tomorrow buy a club and go to a place to play golf and I start just hitting the ball, I won't get a good habit on playing golf. One day, one teacher will come, trainer will come to teach me, and I already have bad habits. It will be difficult. So I think with this process, we need to get out of our heads some myths and really come to a good understanding of these projects, and I think they're very good for the town. So that's my comment. I felt that in my heart that I have to share that for the benefit of our residents.
Thank you, Pastor.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, and town residents. My name is Daniel Banker, and I work with NW Financial Group. Our firm was hired to review the financials of the project known as M Lofts. So tonight I will be going through a description of the proposed project, NW's methodology for our analysis to determine if a financial agreement is necessary, and the impact financially that this proposed project and financial agreement will have on the town. Eventually there will be a slide up there, but
There it comes.
so the project is planned to be 6 stories, which includes 4 stories of residential, 2 stories of structured parking, totaling 150 residential units. 20% of those residential units will be affordable, and the unit mix will include studios, one bedrooms plus dens, 2s and 3 bedrooms. However, the 3 bedrooms are strictly part of the affordable component. As mentioned, there will be 2 stories of structured parking totaling 165 spaces. Part of the redevelopment agreement requires the construction of a publicly accessible pocket park on a portion of town-owned land, Block 3504, Lot 1. The developer will also be required to convey lots 3, 4, and 5 on Block 4901 for nominal consideration to be converted into a to be converted into a future park. And then lastly, there is an existing 8-unit building at Lot 6, and I believe the address is 12 Spring Street, that will be conveyed to the Morris Habitat for Humanity to be converted into a 100% for sale affordable building.
Dan, if I can interrupt you real quick, just want to clarify, there are 30 affordable units at 20%. I think you might have said 20 units, so just want to make sure.
Oh, I apologize. Yeah, 20% affordable, 30 affordable units.
Correct. Thank you.
Based on the developer's pro forma, the estimated cost is $78.36 million. And before I go into additional detail, I would like to just state that the process of reviewing the pilot application, the developer's financials, includes all of their assumptions, rent, expenses, project costs, cap rates, interest rates. So the developer provides their financials, NW reviews those financials to determine if those assumptions are in line with the current market. So we're not taking the developer's numbers and going with them. We make adjustments where we feel it's necessary. So if we go to slide 4, this is the market rate and affordable component breakdown. And you'll see the projected rents of the market rate units with a blended average of $4.36 per square foot. The next slide shows current availabilities within recently built developments in the surrounding area to get a sense of where these projected rents stand as compared to current availabilities. What we see is that these rents are very optimistic. So that's important for 2 reasons. One, if the rents don't reach that level, the developer's returns that we'll be showing later on in the presentation will be lower than what we're projecting. And also because the pilot is based on a percentage of revenue, whatever the rents actually end up being is what the pilot will be based on. As it relates to the 20% affordable component, as Bob Powell mentioned, there will be a mix of very low, low, and moderate income units. But the blended average will be about 50% of area median income. So you'll see that the monthly rents of those affordable units are significantly lower at $1.50 per square foot. And then they're also assuming $150 per parking space for those 165 structured spaces. Sure. Yeah. If we go to slide 7, as mentioned, the total project cost is estimated to be approximately $78.3 million. However, we took a look and went into the details, into the weeds of the project costs, and we made certain adjustments, which you'll see on the bottom of that slide. The land cost adjustment and the conveyance adjustment. So the land cost adjustment, if we go to slide 8, this site has been owned by the developer. The majority of the site has been owned by the developer for about 20 or more years. So for purposes of their pro forma, they assumed a market value for the property, which is used when providing their financials to a lender. They assumed $65,000 per market rate unit. In addition to that assumed value, the developer is currently under contract to purchase 2 town-owned lots for $1.2 million. After looking at recent land sales in the surrounding area, we felt that it was more appropriate to use a $60,000 per market rate unit land value. So that reduction goes from $9 million to $7.2 million. And the second adjustment is for the land conveyance. As mentioned earlier in the presentation, the developer will be required to convey the 3 lots for the future park, as well as the 8-unit building for the future affordable housing use. They used a value of $2 million for that in their project costs. However, because that was part of the redevelopment agreement, because that allowed for higher density, we are not including that as a project cost. So between those two adjustments, we reduced the project cost by approximately $3.8 million. Slide 9 shows the pilot terms. As mentioned, pilot terms vary depending on the type of project. Each project is unique. In this case, after several months of negotiations by the administration, the pilot was reduced from a 30-year pilot to a 20-year pilot, starting at 12% for the first 5 years, 13% for the next 5 years, and 15% for the final 10 years. Of course, there will also be a 2% administrative fee on top of that percentage of AGR that's intended to be used for the administration of pilot billing, reviewing audits, et cetera. If we look at slide 10, without going into too much detail here, before we consider a pilot of any kind, we look at the project under a conventional tax scenario. To do that, we worked with the assessor to understand how this project would be assessed after completion to determine what conventional taxes would likely be. On the far left, you'll see that property taxes would be about $1.1 million. We look at several different metrics to determine if a project's financially feasible. And essentially what you're seeing here is under conventional taxes, the project would be worth $3.5 million less than it cost to build. So that's one metric that leads us to believe that some sort of financial subsidy is required. Then there's other metrics like internal rate of return, which accounts for the amount of equity that goes into the project. Below 10% for an IRR typically requires some sort of financial subsidy. Yield on cost as well. Typically the target in the market right now is between 5.5% to 6.5%. Under conventional taxes, you're at 5.25%. And then debt service coverage ratio is a metric that banks and traditional lenders use to determine if a project can handle and can pay back the loan that they made to the developer. Typically, banks are requiring at least 1.2 coverage, meaning that the cash flow of the project needs to generate 120% of the annual debt service. For example, if your annual debt service is $1 million, the cash flow of the project needs to be $1.2 million to ensure that if rents decrease or if expenses increase, there's still enough wiggle room so that they are ensured that they will get their money back each year. If we look to the right side, the only change is the pilot line item. You'll see that the property taxes go from $1.1 million under the proposed pilot. At stabilization, again, Mr. Powell spoke about, there's a lease-up period. For purposes of our analysis, we're using a 16 unit per month lease-up period, whereas year 2 will become the stabilized 95% occupied year. So in that year, it's estimated that the pilot as proposed will be approximately $750,000 as compared to conventional taxes of $1.1 million. That represents about 65% of conventional taxes. And under that pilot, the returns, you'll see there's a positive project value, a higher IRR, which is still on the low end of what is considered acceptable in today's market, and you get a debt service coverage ratio that would be likely to achieve traditional lending to allow the project to move forward. If we go to, sure. So if we go to the last slide, we're looking at the taxes that are currently generated by the site. This is multiple lots, but across all of those lots, current taxes are approximately $72,000 a year, of which the town gets 37%, which is about $26,000 a year. Under the proposed pilot, if we look at year 2, again, that's the stabilized year, the pilot's estimated to be about $750,000, of which the town share would be $575,000. So over the 20-year period, if the site remained as is and taxes increased by an average of 2% a year, total taxes generated would be about $1.7 million, of which the town would receive $640,000, compared to the proposal that's here tonight, $22 million over the 20-year period, of which $18 million would go to the town. happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from council? Nope. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move on with regular business, please.
Okay, there are 3 ordinances for introduction this evening. Ordinance number O-20-2025, ordinance authorizing a long-term tax exemption and financial agreement with Lackawanna Place Morristown Urban Renewal LLC.
I'll make a motion to introduce ordinance number O-20-2025.
Second.
Any comments or questions? On the introduction of ordinance O-20-2025, Councilwoman Lindsay.
Captain Mark.
Hold on a second.
Sorry, before you vote, I do want to just kind of summarize where we are and why we are asking for your support in moving this pilot. The Bijou project behind the train station has been underdeveloped for many, many years. Prior to COVID, even I think a couple of councils ago, we kind of started talking about this project. It's really been underway for a very, very long time. And it was complicated by New Jersey Transit. It was complicated by COVID. But this developer has remained committed to developing a project on what is now a surface lot behind a train station, which will become a transit-oriented development, which will really add to the aesthetics of the area. It will also add structured public parking, as well as affordable housing units, which will contribute to our COA obligations. It is a beautiful project and something that I think would really add to the character of the town. But as Bob sort of stated in all the gory detail, it won't be feasible without some nominal assistance. And this is unlike many of the pilots that you've seen in the past when Morristown was still encouraging development. This is really to stabilize the project for a period of 12 years and is 85% of taxes and very close to what full taxes would be. So I think the nominal support to the project would really to add to the character of the community and really develop a quality, beautiful project, I think is a good thing for the town.
Okay, so just to piggyback off of the business administrator, so this was approved in 2018, for those who don't know, 7 years ago. Transit sued for $4 million because of a couple of parking spaces they had a covenant on, which is really just a piece of paper. The parking authority owned the lot, and they filed a lawsuit. They wanted $4 million for this project to move forward. Obviously, with $4 million for the project to move forward, the project was never going to move forward. Several years went by with negotiating and litigating with, not us, basically with the developer and the transit developing or negotiating with themselves, I guess you might say. They finally saw fit to settle for, I could be wrong here, but John will correct me if I'm wrong, $1 million. About that, about $1 million. So this project at the time when it was approved, obviously construction rates were a lot lower, cost of goods was a lot lower. It was pre-COVID. There was no supply chain issues. There were no issues with the rising cost of the amount of money it costs for goods, for building, construction. So that also encouraged the high cost for this very, very magnificent development. If you look at what you've seen here, this is going to be a stunning development behind the train station. There is another caveat to this, which I want to bring the council in on this because it was spearheaded by our council president and our councilman, Steve Polipchuk, who probably spearheaded this day one when he came in my office where I met him the first time. So Obviously, there's not a lot of money in this pilot. This is basically, like Jillian had said, to stabilize this project so we can move forward. It's a 12-year pilot. You don't hear about 12-year pilots, you usually hear about 30-year pilots. And what we've all agreed to, and the council came to us, and I agreed, and we worked it out. We are going to, and I'll let the councilman talk about this briefly before you guys take a vote. On this project, we are going to do a financial agreement with the MEF, the Mars Educational Foundation, for 12 years at $25,000 per year. They will benefit, our school will benefit, the resources that they can use to benefit our school system, our school district, I think is a home run. So I wanted to throw it out there. Now I want you guys to close that out and then take your vote.
Sure. No, thank you for that. And I know, Councilman Pilipchuk, this is one of the first things that you said you wanted to accomplish when you became a councilman. So I'll give you the opportunity to speak to it. Obviously, I have 4 young children, all in the Morris school system. Councilman Pilipchuk has young children as well. So why don't you go ahead and share how this came about?
So first of all, this, I want to appreciate thank the administration for considering this too. When we first started considering how to get some of this pilot to the school, I honestly did not know how we would do that. We ran through a few ideas. Some of them ended up being crazier than others. But I think this is a really elegant solution, and I really appreciate the administration for taking the idea and running with it. Like Council President said, I have 2 young kids in the school district. Even outside that, I really truly believe that everyone benefits from an educated population. And you always hear the argument that these projects don't generate many school children, which may or may not be true, but I think everyone in town benefits from having a strong education system. We all benefit from property values, everything like that. So thank you to the administration for doing all this hard work, and all the financial guys for negotiating all this. We appreciate it.
Yeah, and you know, it's the words of cutting edge and transformative. These are different things that communities now can look at what we're doing also. You know, these are not long-term 30-year pilots. This is, like I said, a 12-year pilot to stabilize this project that was approved 7 years ago. And it's going to be a magnificent transit-oriented development. It's going to add to our affordable housing obligation, which we have. At the same time, it's going to give a little boost, not a lot of boost, a little boost, at $25,000 to a nonprofit that benefits our school district. The MEF is an outstanding organization, and we are happy to be able to partner with them, and look forward to many years, even years after I'm gone, you'll still be benefiting from this, and we're all really excited about it. And I really want to publicly thank the council, Councilman Steve Pilipchuk, because like I said from the beginning, he is very policy-oriented, and that means a lot to me. And so we appreciate your commitment, and Nathan and David and Chris and Tina and Toshiba and Bob, who know that what the MEF brings to our community. So that's it. Now you guys can take your vote on the first part.
Thank you.
I just want to emphasize the piece of affordable housing. For me, that's something that is very close to my heart, and I always fight for affordable housing. And every project that we have done adds to the affordable housing piece. So,
thank you. Yes. All right, Margot.
On the introduction of ordinance O-20-2025, Councilwoman Lindsay.
Yes.
Councilman Pilipchuk.
Yes.
Councilman Russo.
Yes.
Councilman Silva.
yes.
Council President Umbreak.
Yes.
Ordinance O-20-2025 has been introduced properly by title and will be considered further after a public hearing on May 27th. Ordinance number O-21-2025, ordinance authorizing a long-term tax exemption and financial agreement with M. Loft Spring Street Urban Renewal.
I'll make a motion to introduce ordinance number O-21-2025.
Second,
Council President, if I may.
Please provide some background and additional clarity.
To similarly summarize for this project, this is sort of similar but very different. This This project encompasses a section of Spring Street that has been deteriorating for quite some time, and is really in contrast with all of the other development that's around it. So seeing this property being revitalized, I think is also, just like Bijou is going to be, or Lackawanna is going to be a benefit to the town. In addition, we have direct benefits. You have 30 affordable units that are being constructed, which is 10%, or 12, excuse me.
20%.
Jeez.
Yeah.
You started it. 30 units, which is 20% of the units that are being constructed. They're paying the town $1.2 million for our property, which I will offer as a healthy amount for the property that's in question. They are donating the residential unit across the street to Habitat for Humanity for the purposes of homeowner-occupied affordable housing. They're donating the other vacant properties across the street for us to preserve as open space, and to acknowledge the existence of the old colored schoolhouse, which we look to really enhance as part of the future of this neighborhood. So they're donating those properties. They're also creating open space along the river behind the building that will also be open to the public. There's a lot of benefits that are being offered as part of this project for a pilot that's a shorter term than we typically entertain, 20 years at 13 and higher percentage, which is also very close to, or is by the end of the term, close to full taxes. And is something, given the benefits the town will gain by bringing the development into, removing all of the dilapidation, by all of the give-backs that are giving to the town. I think that there's definitely a benefit and to support this project and this pilot as proposed. And then I will hand it off to Mayor for the good part.
Sure. Again, briefly, let me just put out a little bit of a frame here. Morristown is the county seat in Morris, and I spoke about this at the budget address. As the county seat, we are handed a lot of nonprofits, county, state, a large percentage of tax money we do not receive, millions of dollars in taxes. And if we weren't the county seat and we weren't housed to everything in the county and all the nonprofits, obviously our community would be flush with cash, but that's just not how this community was built. It's not what it is. We spoke about this briefly at the budget address, that as this county grows, it's a responsibility of every municipality to take their part and with social services. And I used the example of the person I met in the sneaker store, Fleet Feet. He had just become into Morristown, was homeless, and I asked him where he came from, and he came from the town of Roxbury. And I asked him, why would you come to Morristown? General conversation. I talk to everybody. You all know I talk to everybody out there. So he said, because my town doesn't have any services. So, it's imperative that the county look at their part they play in each municipality in this county. It is a wealthy county, but we, as Morristown, take the brunt of everything in the county. We take the homeless, we take all the nonprofits, we take the mission, we take people that come from a town like Saddlebrook and they bring them here to our hospital and then leave them here and keep going. So we, as a #1 regional hospital, obviously Morristown Medical being #1 in the state, we're attractive to everything. So we take on a lot. So these are important things that we do here for our own survival as a community, financially, and to build our community, and especially with the affordable housing components that we are required to build. This is a home run with 30 plus all the ones on the other side. The preservation of the historic schoolhouse, black schoolhouse, that is going to be a place where people can go and people can learn and people can know about history of Morristown. And a lot of people don't even know Benedict Arnold was tried on Spring Street. Bet you how many people in this audience with their hands raised knew that Benedict Arnold was tried here in Morristown the first time? All right, I saw a hand down. All right, Aaron. Yeah, so he was tried the first time for treason on Spring Street. There's a lot of history here, and there's a lot of stuff we have to deal with each day. This council does yeoman work to deal with it, and so does my business administrator. If you read that article in Newsbeat, you'd see why. So, before I turn it over to the council again, we looked at ways through, God bless you, through the Councilman Pilipchak and Nathan, Councilman Silva, Russo, Lindsay, Toshiba, and Bob Anacone, of ways that we can benefit even more. And what we came up with, what we were massaging, and I was able to tell Councilman Pilipchak and Councilman Russo and Councilman Nathan, I think, after the meeting, when I got the word, that we are now going to offer $75,000 per year for 20 years to the MEF, which will give them the first 12 years, $100,000 each year, and then the final 8 years, $75,000, a little short of the 100, but who knows what else could happen in the meantime. We've got North Park Place, we've got all kinds of things going on. We wish we could do more, but it's reasonable. It helps the school system. It's a great organization, and we're in full support. And I want to thank the council again for that leadership that they showed, and for our administration working together to get things done in this town. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I think these projects are not only transformative for the community, but certainly transformative for the MEF. I think the MEF, this is really going to improve a lot of the programming that they can do and provide for future generations. So I'm really excited about that. I think it's a home run. I'll turn it over to Councilman Pilipchak for any final comments.
Just one thing I want to add too is by exempting the land from the pilot and keeping that conventional taxes, the taxes that would normally charge on the land still go to the school district. And if I remember the numbers correctly, it's about a 5 times increase from where they would be without the project. So it's great to see not only are we donating to the MEF, but also by exempting the land from the pilot and having that conventional taxes, that land is still paying the normal school taxes that would pay under a conventional agreement. So.
Yeah, I'll give you a round number. It's like, just say 50,000 now, goes up to 250.
Yeah, something like that, yeah. Yeah. And based on the analysis that I read through and listened to, that alone should cover the school children that are generated by this project in theory. Of course, it's theory, so. But.
That's it, thank you.
And that's one of the myths that I have heard about, that these projects don't give anything to the school district. So now that myth is debunked. I just want our president to tell us where is
the Moores Educational Foundation.
Because some people might not know.
So the MEF, nobody's here from the MEF.
Yes, yes, they are.
Somebody's here from the MEF.
The chair
Yes.
is here.
Chair's here.
The chair of the MEF. If you're willing to come up and share a little bit about the MEF and how the MEF will benefit from these payments. Not to put you on the spot.
Yeah, you put her on the spot.
I'm sure you're used to this kind of stuff.
You can
Yeah,
That one.
stand there. Thank you. You can introduce yourself?
Yes, hi, I'm Debbie Santup. I live in Morris Township. I am a chair of the volunteer chairperson of the Morris Educational Foundation Board. Thank you so much for, let me just tell you what the Morris Educational Foundation is. We are the nonprofit partner of the public schools here in Morristown. So our full mission is to raise resources every year to give back into the schools to support programs, grants, initiatives. We raise money for scholarships from private donors for Morristown High School graduating seniors. We've given back millions of dollars to the school district since our inception in 1992, sorry. So that's who we are. Thank you so much. This is nice to learn so much tonight.
Can you briefly describe what this additional $100,000 could potentially be used for and benefit the MEF and the Moore School District?
Sure. So this would be a transformational opportunity for the Morris Educational Foundation in terms of our impact into the public schools. This would go for programs and services to benefit the 5,700 students in the Morris School District. Every year we provide resources for the very youngest preschoolers to graduating seniors, professional development of our teachers, just all kinds of innovative initiatives, ideas that the schools want to do to improve the academic and educational experience of our young people, and we're a proud partner of the district, incredibly proud of the Morris School District and who we are, and what an amazing public school system we have, and it's just a wonderful community. We do believe that strong schools are at the root of a strong community, and we work tirelessly to make our schools as strong as they can be, and this opportunity will certainly help us continue to do that. So
Wonderful.
thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think we're ready to call the question.
On the introduction of ordinance O-21-2025, Councilwoman Lindsay.
Yes.
Councilman Polypchuk.
Yes.
Councilman Brusso.
Yes.
Councilman Silva.
Yes.
Council President Umbreak.
Yes.
Ordinance O-21-2025 has been introduced properly by title and will be considered further after a public hearing on May 27th. Ordinance number O-22-2025, ordinance of the Town of Morristown and the County of Morris, New Jersey, authorizing the guarantee of the payment of the principal of and interest on revenue bonds of the Parking Authority of the Town of Morristown and any notes issued in anticipation thereof in an amount not to exceed $7.5 million to be issued by the Parking Authority of the Town of Morristown for the purpose of providing additional security therefore and determining certain other matters in connection therewith.
I'll make a motion to introduce ordinance number O-22-2025.
Second?
Any comments or questions from council? On the introduction of ordinance O-22-2025, Councilwoman Lindsay.
Yes.
Councilman Polypchuk.
Yes.
Councilman Russo.
Yes.
Councilman Silva.
Yes.
Council President Umbreak.
Yes.
Motion carries. Ordinance 22-2025 has been introduced properly by title and will be considered further after a public hearing on May 27th. There are 4 ordinances for public hearing and adoption. The first one is ordinance O-14-2025, calendar year ordinance to exceed the municipal budget appropriation limits and to establish a cap bank pursuant to NJSA 48:4-45.14.
I'll make a motion to adopt ordinance number O-14-2025.
Second?
At this time, I'll open the floor for a public hearing on ordinance 14-2025 only. Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Any comments or questions from council? On the adoption of ordinance O-14-2025, Councilwoman Lindsay.
Yes.
Councilman Polypchuk.
Yes.
Councilman Russo.
Yes.
Councilman Silva.
Yes.
Council President Umbreak.
Yes.
Ordinance O-14-2025 is adopted. Ordinance number O-15-2025, ordinance authorizing the purchase of Block 801, Lot 3 in the town of Morristown from the New Jersey Division of Motor Vehicles.
I'll make a motion to adopt ordinance number O-15-2025.
Second?
At this time, I'll open the floor for a public hearing on ordinance O-15-2025 only. Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Any comments or questions from council? On the adoption of ordinance 15-2025, Councilwoman Lindsay.
Yes.
Councilman Polypchuk.
Yes.
Councilman Russo.
Yes.
Councilman Silva.
Yes.
Council President Umbreak.
Yes.
Motion carries. Ordinance O-15-2025 is adopted. Ordinance number O-16-2025, bond ordinance providing for the acquisition of property in and by the town of Morristown and the county of Morris, New Jersey, appropriating $860,000 therefore, and authorizing the issuance of $817,000 in bonds or notes of the town to finance part of the cost thereof.
I'll make a motion to adopt ordinance number O-16-2025.
Second?
At this time, I'll open the floor for a public hearing on ordinance 16-2025 only. Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Any comments or questions from council on the adoption of ordinance O-16-2025? Councilwoman Lindsay.
Yes.
Councilman Polypchuk.
Yes.
Councilman Russo.
Yes.
Councilman Silva.
Yes.
Council President Umbreak.
Yes.
Ordinance 16-2025 is adopted. Ordinance number O-19-2025, ordinance authorizing a public question to be submitted to the voters, establishing an open space tax and open space trust fund.
I'll make a motion to adopt ordinance number O-19-2025.
Second?
At this time, I'll open the floor for a public hearing on ordinance O-19-2025 only. Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Any comments or questions from council?
Just like to again thank Councilman Polypchuk and members of the public and the community for coming out. We'll let the voters decide if we push this forward, and I think that's appropriate.
I just want to add to that, one thing to note is that we're not establishing it tonight. We're authorizing a question to be put on the ballot.
Yep.
And that is the only way, as a town council, we can do this. We can't push it on ourselves. So we're kind of cutting the red tape for a group of citizens that came forward that said we were willing to go and get signatures to get this on the ballot. So we're using our tools as a town council to make that happen. And seeing the amount of people that have come up to me about this, I see the support in the town, and I really appreciate it. And if the school funding through the pilots was the first thing, this is probably the second thing that I approached the administration for. So I appreciate both of them getting done the same night. So.
On the adoption of ordinance O-19-2025, Councilwoman Lindsay.
Yes.
Councilman Polypchuk.
Yes.
Councilman Russo.
Yes.
Councilman Silva.
Yes.
Council President Umbreak.
Yes.
Motion carries. Ordinance 19-2025 is adopted. We have 5 resolutions for adoption. Would any members of council like to pull any for separate consideration?
Number 70, please.
Any others? With that, I would ask for a motion to adopt resolution numbers 68-2025, 69-2025, 71-2025, and 72-2025.
I'll make that motion.
Second?
On the adoption of those resolutions, Councilwoman Lindsay.
Yes.
Councilman Polypchuk.
Yes.
Councilman Russo.
Yes.
Councilman Silva.
Yes.
Council President Umbreak.
Yes.
Motion carries. Resolution R-70-2025, resolution approving the person-to-person transfer of plenary retail consumption license number 142433030 from Gracie Sunshine LLC to DWOC LLC, and the place-to-place transfer of said license from in-pocket to premises located at 100 Moore Street in the town of Morristown.
I'll make a motion to adopt resolution number R-70-2025.
Second?
Councilman.
Ms. Barry, I meant this on this too earlier and I forgot, so I apologize. But this license is the one that was in front of us as part of the alley project.
That's correct.
And it's being transferred to 100 Moore Street, which is M Station. basically.
Correct.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Okay, if there are no other questions on the adoption of resolution R-70-2025, Councilwoman Lindsay.
Yes.
Councilman Polypchuk.
Yes.
Councilman Russo.
Yes.
Councilman Silva.
Yes.
Council President Umbreak.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you very much. We have no unfinished old business, no new business. I will make a motion to adjourn.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting adjourned.
Marty.